Let's be honest, model railroading is not the cheapest hobby in the world. That's just a fact. But there are things that you can do to make the hobby more affordable, and there are some things to consider when looking at cheaper versus more expensive products. Hey everybody, my name's Jimmy. Welcome to Coffee and Trains. Today I'm drinking more of that pumpkin spice coffee. It's fall and I do enjoy it. But if you guys want to tell me what kind of coffee you are drinking and have it featured just like these guys right here, you can leave that in the comments below and you might see your comment on an episode of Coffee and Trains. Cheers, guys. I'm going to jump right in and say that if you want to buy a lot of model railroad stuff, you should make a hobby budget. This budget is a bit different than your household budget. A hobby budget is more of a budget wish list hybrid. A hobby budget organizes your thoughts and the items that you want. A lot of times writing these things down will also help you realize what you actually like and may save you money in the long run. I've created a Google Sheet hobby budget that you can download and use. I will link that in the description below. Once you've figured out what you want to buy, you need to plan and you need to set your expectations. Most likely, you won't be buying all of your model railroad supplies and products at once. I really like to buy based on what I'm doing with my model railroad. When I was building my model railroad, I bought very little rolling stock and no locomotives. Once the layout was complete, I could start buying new locomotives and rolling stock because I wasn't spending all that money on the construction of the layout. This is when I went on a bit of a passenger set buying spree. I bought Amtrak, Metra, Burlington Zephyr, and the Chicago 400 sets. Once I was happy with that, I started into the locomotive collecting phase that I'm currently in. The key takeaway is that I did not buy all of these at once. I planned and saved for them. I looked for what was coming out and what was already out and went through and bought the items one at a time. I would compare various retailers to find the best price plus shipping. Some places may have higher retail prices but lower shipping, which actually makes it cheaper. So this was key. Another thing that I do when I'm buying new locomotives is I typically buy DCC ready. I'm pretty comfortable with a DCC install on a modern DCC ready locomotive because it's fairly easy and straightforward. This saves me a good chunk of money, and if I want to add sound later, I can certainly do that with my decoder of choice. You can apply this way of buying to anything really. I enjoy purchasing one good piece of rolling stock a month, but we'll talk about that more with rolling stock in a bit. The most obvious way to save money when you are looking to flesh out your collection is to buy used. There are a bunch of places to buy used, and I have done an entire video on that, as a matter of fact, and I'll link that at the end of this video. Places like trains.com and Model Train Market are great resources. Train shows are also a great place to find deals too. Bring cash and that can make your deals even sweeter because you can haggle and negotiate. eBay is mostly fine, but you just have to be careful at what you're looking at. If you're in the HO or N-scale market, you can check out things like Broadway Limited's refurbished store. You can find some really good deals here on locomotives and rolling stock and be reassured that the company has done the refurbishment and not just somebody else. This brings me to rolling stock. You will more than likely be buying a lot more rolling stock than locomotives. So there are a few things that you can do to stay on budget while building your rolling stock fleet. The first is to set a schedule for when and how many pieces of rolling stock you will buy. I typically buy 1 to 3 pieces per month. Next is to buy in bulk. Yes, it takes a bit more money and time to save up for that, but you can save money per unit if there are in sets of cars that you can buy. Finally, I want to make a note on older used rolling stock. A lot of times you can find some pretty good deals on older used rolling stock, but you have to think about the quality and the equipment types. With N-scale, you could be potentially dealing with older Rapido couplers and old wheel sets that could potentially not run as well. The same applies to HO scale, except the couplers may be horn hook. So you may be buying parts for those old cars. Now, fixing up old cars may be just a fun part of the hobby for you, and if that's the case, ignore this. But if you are buying older used rolling stock for the sole purpose of refurbishing it to save money, you really need to look at the cost involved and weigh it against a newer counterpart. You may end up spending more money on the refurbishment. Either way, just weigh the costs and make sure that you are comfortable replacing every major part that is required to make the car run if you buy used. Model railroading can be expensive, but with a little planning and a little patience, you can get a lot of what you want out of the hobby. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.